Hi, my name is Erin.
This is Erin. On this episode of Virally Different, she shares her story. A model, advocate, and chronic illness warrior navigating life with Ehlers Danlos Syndrome. Through a question and answer interview, Erin gives us a deeper look into her world. From navigating invisible illnesses and ableism to finding strength, creativity, and self-expression every day. Her journey has taken her from discovering her diagnosis through social media to becoming a voice for true inclusion in fashion, modeling, and beyond. In this episode, Erin goes deeper than what it means to live with a disability. She shows us that it's about resilience, authenticity, and the courage to keep showing up even when the world doesn't always understand. Every word, every reflection reminds us why we do this, to educate, inspire, and connect. This is Virally Different, a home for every kind of different. And this is Erin's story.
And I chose to be on Virally Different because I wanted to educate people on Ehlers Danlos Syndrome and on hip dysplasia, and hopefully give some encouragement to other people who might have chronic illnesses or disabilities. What's one thing people would be surprised to know about you outside your diagnosis? One thing a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm actually getting my master's in criminology at Northeastern University in Boston. It's an online program and I'm super excited to start this fall. What inspired you to start sharing your story on TikTok? I started sharing my story on TikTok because that's actually how I found out my diagnosis. It just started showing up on my For You page and I thought, hey, that kind of sounds like me. And so then that's when I went to the doctor and brought Ehlers Danlos to my doctor's attention. And when I got diagnosed later, I thought it was just so cool that the only way that I found out about this rare connective tissue disorder is through social media. So I thought I might as well do the same thing and maybe help some people who are going through the diagnostic process or literally have no idea where to start and they're just like me saying like, hey, this kind of sounds like me. And so yeah, I just thought that I would give back to the community that helped me realize what was going on. What's something people often misunderstand or are surprised to learn about life with EDS or hip dysplasia? People often don't know that EDS is a whole body disease. It's a connective tissue disorder that affects way more than just your joints. So yes, people do have joint pain with EDS, but it goes way deeper than that. And a lot of people can have issues with their blood pressure, with their heart rate, and especially GI issues. So it's much more than just a joint pain issue. Can you share what daily mobility looks like for you and the adaptations you've developed over time? I am a wheelchair user, but specifically an ambulatory wheelchair user. So that means that some days I might be able to use a wheelchair, some days I don't need to. It really just depends how I'm feeling, and I typically use my mobility aids for longer days or when I know I'm not going to be able to take a break for a while. I use a wheelchair, I have a walker, forearm crutches, and I also use a shower chair, which is very, very helpful. So daily, I don't use much of anything when I'm just around the house because I have an apartment and it's kind of small in here to fit any kind of mobility aid through the doorways. But when I go out, I do like to use my wheelchair preferably. And if I can't, then I'll try to use something else. But my go-to is my wheelchair. I love it. It's very comfortable for me and it's very easy for me to be able to propel myself. I used to have a wheelchair in the past that really hurt my shoulder, so this one actually really helps me. But yeah, being an ambulatory user means that sometimes I might need more help than it may look like, but it all just depends what I'm doing that day. How have your conditions shaped the way you approach fashion, modeling, or beauty routines? So when I started getting into modeling, I had this vision of showing the fashion world that you don't have to be this cookie cutter person. And it's actually really hard to find work in the modeling industry when you don't look the way that they want you to look. And I don't look like that at all. I'm not 5'8". I'm curvy. I have brown hair. I don't have straight hair. And so it's just hard for me to find work when I don't fit into that mold. But then I thought, if I can do my own modeling work on a smaller scale, maybe bigger people will see that and they'll be inspired to use someone that might look a little bit different, because it's boring to see the same type of person over and over again, and it's also kind of disheartening to not see someone that looks like you when you're looking for something to wear and you don't know how it's going to look like on your body. So that's why I started doing modeling, and I really like it. It's very fun for me, it's very rewarding, but it is just really hard to be taken seriously in that field. I've been to casting calls where it's very clear that I wouldn't get the part simply because the other girls looked exactly the same, and they're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it's just hard to be in that space when you know that that's not what they're looking for. And yet I keep going and I keep trying, and so hopefully one day they'll recognize that everybody can be different and that you don't need to have clothes on a certain type of person. And if you're a designer and you only make clothes for one size or one type of person, then that kind of sounds like a you issue. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe you should be thinking about how these clothes are going to look like on real people if you actually want to sell your clothing. So I know it's a bit of a hot take, but that's the reason why I got into modeling, and I just hope that I can inspire designers and directors to choose people that are a little bit more real in the world. What's something you can do that people often assume you can't? I think it's so funny when I'm in my wheelchair somewhere in public and I stand up to do something and someone just looks at me and they're like, oh my goodness. It's like, not everyone in a wheelchair is paralyzed. I don't know why they always think that. But yeah, I can stand up, I can walk, I can run, I can jump if I wanted to. I can go on roller coasters. It just depends the day, it just depends how I'm feeling. You know, you go through ups and downs when for example, when you're sick, one day you might be like really sick and in bed, the other day, you know, you're feeling slightly better and you could do some more things. So I think it's just funny that people assume other people's abilities just because of the way that they look. It's not true. What does a good day look like for you, and what about a hard day? For me, when I talk about good days, that means I can maybe go to the gym. I like to weight lift. And I get to do whatever I want that day. Maybe I'll go shopping, but I know even if I'm having a good day not to push it too much, because then it'll turn into a bad day. So I maybe choose one or two activities to do during that day, and I don't want to push myself too hard to turn it into something where I'm in a bad day for the next couple of days. And so a bad day for me would be that whatever I'm feeling, I need to stay home, or I need to take more pain medications, or whatever that is. I just know that I need to cancel on people for that day, and I feel horrible doing that. But if I need to stay home, I need to stay home. And then there's some other days when it's like a really bad day, and then I'll have to go to the doctor, go to the hospital. But I haven't had those very often, so I'm grateful for that. Do you have any daily rituals or self-care practices that bring you comfort? I know this may seem a little silly, but I have my favorite stuffed animal. Well, not really an animal, but this is my carrot, and he's my emotional support carrot. I bring him everywhere, to doctor's visits, to labs or tests or whatever I need, and especially on those hard days when I just need to stay home. He's always there with me. He's very worn out by now and very lumpy in the inside, but it doesn't matter. He's always there for me, and so that brings me a lot of comfort, even when things are not looking too great. Have you experienced bullying, judgment, or unkind assumptions about your disability, and how have you handled those moments? being a content creator online means that at some point you will get backlash for the things that you post, and I have definitely experienced that. A lot of people from, for whatever reason, are upset about the fact that I want everyone to be happy and healthy when they have disabilities. So when they decide to post whatever unkind things on my posts, if they are genuinely hurtful, then I take them down. But if there's something that just sounds like somebody who is maybe uneducated in that field, or something that just seems like isn't offensive to anyone in particular, then I'll leave it up because I know someone is going to respond to that, and they almost always do. People will go back and forth in the comment section about like, hey, you shouldn't be talking about this in that way, that's really hurtful. And then in the end, they might either accept that and say like, oh, okay, well, I guess you do have a point, or they'll just keep defending their stance. And I let those comments sit there for people to see that there are still people in the world that exist that are ableist like that. Because in my bubble, before I started posting on TikTok or Instagram, everyone was so kind to me, at least, of my friends. And so I kind of didn't really think that ableism was that prominent until I started posting. And then I realized, whoa, like there's a lot of ableists out there. And so it's kind of a wake-up call for a lot of other people as well. And it does show like your character and who you are, and it's gonna come to bite you in the future if you leave things like that. So I let it go on. Every comment or every like hate that I get is actually boosting. It's just giving me more engagement, and it's helping me get my stuff out to the right people. So I'm not complaining about it. I like to protect my peace. It really doesn't hurt me. I just let it go and let my followers do what they need to do, or sometimes I will get involved, but I mainly just leave it out there. Sometimes I call them out. Sometimes I'll message them personally, and if it's something that really upsets me. But I mainly just let it go. I think it's kind of funny at the end of the day that people are so worked up over a TikTok, but I guess that's how they get their fulfillment out of the day.
On every full episode of Virally Different, we like to feature a post from one of our platforms. It's our way of sparking meaningful conversations and staying connected with our community. At Virally Different, we love hearing people's stories just as much as we love sharing them, because stories bring us together, they remind us that we're not alone, and they help us see the world through each other's eyes. So we're curious, what's one thing you wish schools taught about disabilities or differences? There aren't any comments on this post yet, but we're really hoping that next week we'll be able to share some of your thoughts, the kind of comments that lead to new conversations, new insights, and real connection. For now, let's go back to Erin's story.
People understood about invisible illnesses. I wish that people knew that invisible illnesses actually exist, and they're way more common than you think they are. Now, a lot of people think that disabilities or chronic illnesses are something that are always shown. Like if you see someone with the feeding tube, oh, they have something going on, or oh, they're using a walker, they must be ill. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you don't even see things that are actually on the outside. Like a lot of people wear braces underneath their clothes, or they wear like compression socks, and some of them have ostomy bags. You can't see those a lot of the time, and so it's not fair to be giving a misrepresentation of what disabilities look like. And so I just wish that people knew that invisible illnesses do exist, and it's not fair to judge someone based on what they're looking on the outside, especially because dynamic disabilities exist as well, like I have. And so like I said before, you might not see me one day as you see me the next day. And so it's just something that we just need to stop assuming about people and just let people live their life how they need to live it. It's none of our business. If I could break one stereotype about disability or chronic illness, what would it be? Although there's a lot of stereotypes that I would like to dismantle, if I only had to choose one, it would be that the world doesn't have to revolve around people with disabilities. And while the world doesn't have to revolve around anyone in particular, we should at the very least be considered in all aspects, because disability is the only minority that everyone will end up being like belonging to at some point in their lives. And when you think about it that way, it makes so much more sense, because people think that disability is only for older people, and that's why they have, handicap placards, and that's why they go to the doctor so often, is because they're the elder. But that's not true. Everyone will become disabled at some point. It doesn't matter if you're young, doesn't matter if you're old. There's disabilities in the entire range of ages. So I just hope that one day people will realize that disability is so much bigger than they think it is, and then they'll start thinking about how they can help us in every single area, like in construction and accommodations and everything like that, because it affects everyone. Whether you are disabled or not, it will have to do with you in one way or another, sooner or later. What's been the most meaningful moment of connection you've had with a follower or fellow chronic illness warrior? A couple of months ago at Cal State San Marcos, I partnered with the Disability and Neurodiversity Alliance, and we made an event called Equitable Education. And in that event, we were having people sign a petition to protect Section 504. And during that day, we had people come from a variety of abilities, and we had stickers for them to take. We made bookmarks. We made flyers about different types of disabilities, information on Section 504. We had supplies to make bracelets and to make paper stars, and we had giveaways, and we had music playing, and it was just such a beautiful day to see everybody come together and actually see how people are supporting others with disabilities. And I will just never forget our picture that we took all together, and it was just a beautiful day that is probably one of my favorites, seeing people face to face and how my advocacy is actually helping people like in real time. What is your vision for disability representation in fashion modeling and lifestyle spaces? Through my modeling, I want to be able to What's your vision for disability representation in fashion, modeling, and lifestyle spaces? Eventually, I want my modeling to reach brands that need more disability inclusion, and to not market it as disability inclusion, but just to realize that being inclusive is just being normal, is having people of all different backgrounds, because people aren't cookie cutter like how they choose their models. That's not accurate of real life. And so disability inclusion is really just a model of how normal people might look like in everyday life. We're really not that different when you think about it. And so I would like for my modeling to reach companies like, let's say, Target, for example, so that they can actually have real inclusion, because I know that there's, whatever going on, that they actually don't have true inclusion like in their hearts, and it's not showing out in the correct ways, and it's being masked, right, by people thinking that just because they have someone in a wheelchair it means that they're being inclusive, but it's not. And so if I were to get into those spaces, maybe I could help turn those companies into something that's truly inclusive. And that way, when people go to find clothing, they're not going to be frustrated about will these jeans actually fit me well when I'm sitting down, or will they give me the jeans crotch? Because no one wants that in their jeans. And so I just hope that when people go shopping, that they can feel like fashion is also for them, and they don't have to feel like they always have to buy leggings and a baggy t-shirt everywhere they go. They can actually express themselves knowing that clothing was made with them in mind too. People can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at eds period with period Erin. My Instagram also has a backup, and it's instead of periods underscores, so that's in case something happens to my main one. But I'd love for everyone if they could give me a follow there. I'm trying to grow to be able to achieve those goals, and so I'm excited to take you all on this journey with me. Any last words? Thank you for watching this episode of Virally Different, and I hope to see you all on my Instagram and on my TikTok.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Virally Different. Thank you for watching and listening to Erin's story. If you want to hear more stories like hers, check out our YouTube page, a home for every kind of different. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Drop a comment, share your insights or experiences. You never know, you might be featured in our next episode.